and we're back to speak about the pyramids.
Oh,
And
okay.
what we can share,
Mm.
because the last video we only got touched about 30 seconds, and I think
Yeah.
people were like expecting a lot more.
Mm.
So I hope we can go into how we built them, what they're for.
Mm.
This new trend where people are saying that there's pipes underneath it.
Yeah.
And I know there was pipes underneath it to go to the Nile Valley River.
Mm.
They're not speaking about the chambers that the Templars get initiated into underneath the pyramids. They're not speaking about the blast technology that Nikola Tesla was kind of replicating with his Warcliffe Tower. They're not speaking about the arcs that Templars have got 6 of them that are protected at the moment. They're not speaking about the mana that we will put into the arcs to make it a large capacitor. So basically every pyramid worldwide is like an electrical circuit. So that's our Earth's grid. They talk about aliens, but they're not saying that the extraterrestrials are us. So yeah, I'm thinking we need to
Yeah, I mean that's
straight.
a very interesting topic, and like we say, there's no topic, yeah, that the master hasn't written about. First of all, and being the first to write on these topics extensively. So he wrote a book many years ago called The Science of the Pyramids, and other books that went into breaking down the pyramids, especially the ones in Giza, the Giza Plateau, because there are pyramids all over the world, pyramids underwater, pyramids. There are more pyramids than, say, Sudan. And when you go to Egypt today, of course, the people you see there are not the original people or the original inhabitant of that place. What you're seeing now is what people will refer to more as the desert Arabs, because most of the indigenous people have been pushed away. And so a lot of the secrets and information about the pyramids, about many things to do with our culture, has been kept secret or sacred until this day and time. Now, what Europeans did and other people that invaded and came to Egypt did is they tried to whitewash everything by, chopping off the noses and the lips and things like that, because no matter what, when you look on the planet now, you will see that there are, and even anthropologists, as you know, have now, through the Human Genome Project, since 1953 up until now, have been able to actually break down that life didn't start with one person, as they teach you in religion.
Impossible.
Yeah, like Adam and Eve, and Adam was the first man, and everybody came from that. Because there are actually 3 different strains or tree of lives. So the original will be the African race referred to as the Homo naledi, Homo habilis. And then you'll have, that would be the black race, the African race. Then you'll have the yellow race, which is referred to as the Denisovan or the Homo florensis. That's dealing with all of the Asians. So it doesn't matter if you're Chinese, Japanese, Korean, all of the Asian, they fall into that tree of being Denisovan and Homo florensis. Then, of course, you have the last root race being the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal being the Caucasians or the Europeans. And that's all of them. But when you go back to the first, which is what we're referring to as the Africans, you're dealing with these Ptah'ites. And in ancient Egypt, Ptah is the first, the opener, the first one, you see. And that picks up in Islam as Al-Fatiha, with the first surah, where they say the opener. But I'm saying that to say those original Neolithic small people known as newborns were the original in that place, and they were dark skinned, 4 foot 5 inches for the male and 5 foot 5 for the female. So yeah, so that those people got pushed out of ancient Egypt into more places like Aswan. So when you go to Egypt today, you go to like Cairo, which would be the main kind of like capital city. You just see mainly those descendants of Ishmael. Remember, Ishmael
and Hagar
was the son of Abraham and Hagar. Hagar being an Egyptian, and Abraham coming from the Mesopotamia region, of where we call Iraq, Iran, the Babylonian Empire, yeah, which today will be like Iraq and so forth. And so the Anunnaki landed there, and that was, you know, later on. So you had these original beings, the Pataites, who have ancestors to the stars, where we're dealing with these beings known as the Pa or the Natharu. Yeah, so when we say Pa Natharu, we're just saying the overseers. And these overseers were responsible for seeding the planet and to teach those offspring by way of these Pataites. And even today, with what anthropologists are saying, these are those people that became the Sans people. And you look at everybody's traits on the planet today, they are tied into the traits from the Sans people. All right. So the knowledge and the information was kept secret and passed down, or we say it was secreted. You look at the word secret and secrete. Although they are looking the same, they actually mean different things. So the information about how the pyramids were built, what they were for, etc., was secreted by the orders through mouth to ear. So you had to be initiated into the Egyptian mystery schools to get the secrets. And although many Europeans were initiated, they didn't get the full secrets. They got 3 degrees, right? And these 3 degrees is what has become what they've used by way of masonry as EA, FC, and MM, which is the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason. They've used that system where they were taught in Egypt, because why? Egypt were the original builders, because when you look at the word mason, it relates to masonry and building, or bricklayers, or people that were, because they're trying to figure out how did these people build the pyramids, because they were mighty great builders.
I mean, a lot of people don't even know that the first ever Grand Master of the Knights Templar was a Moor.
Right, this is what I'm saying. But they do, as they progress in degrees, they do get to know and realize that they call the person known as Nimmara or Nimrod or Sargon, right? They recognize him as being a builder. They say he was a mighty hunter and a great builder, and it also ties into like the building of the pyramids.
So a lot of the Sufi orders, for instance, would have gave birth to the Western world Freemasonry.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to.
Guys
I'm
like
building up to
Huda
that.
Payne's, Godfrey St. Omar, who learnt from the Jews and the Sufis, passed only 33 degrees of knowledge down to the Western world. So
this is what I'm saying. So when you have people that they recognize as Greek philosophers, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle,
they all say themselves they studied from the Tamarais.
Right. They all studied from Tamarais, but they were given these 3 degrees. And what they've done is exaggerated those 3 degrees to 33. Because after those 3, the rest are honorary degrees.
So the 33 is only within the Scottish Rite, not within the York
Not within the York Rite. And why 33? Because the freezing point of water is 32, right? So it's a symbolic recognition of being dead at the freezing point at 32 degrees and being raised again to 33. So those secrets of how these builders, because when we say building, we also have to remember that we have to go to the very beginning, the building blocks of life, not just physical building, because we're aware that you have the physical world, which is seen, and you have the unseen world, which we refer to, some people refer to as the spiritual world, the etheric world, etc., etc.
So is that why in Wu-Sabat we have 360 degrees physical and 360 degrees spiritual?
Right. Adding together gives you 720 degrees. So now when you compare that to the Europeans coming and being taught what we refer to as the lesser mysteries, and they were given 3 degrees, you can see that 3 degrees to 720 degrees, it's a big difference. So there's a lot they do not know. And we, as the new teachers of this new cycle, the new 24,000 cycle, 24,000 year cycle, known as, people call it the age of Aquarius. We know it as the sun cycle, the golden age, the gold cycle. This is the time where no matter who you are on this planet, you're going to have to go back to being quite humble and allow us as the teachers. Is that you or me?
Yes.
Sorry, my phone always does this.
It's
Allow
cute.
us as the, even though it's on silent, as the teachers, the supreme beings, the new prophets of this new 24,000 year cycle, to tell our story, because people have seen who we are, what we are, through the lens of these Europeans and other people who termed it history.
His story.
Yeah, his story. But his story is not my story. And our story, or my story, they say it's a mystery because they don't know, right? They don't know how the pyramids were built. They don't know how we do what we do. They don't know where we come
Well, this
from.
is what I really want to go into
Yeah,
about how, because the last video, I only touched on it for 30 seconds about cement.
yeah.
We used a limestone cement, wooden casing, and we poured into casts for the inner and the outer casing. The outer casing would have been pure limestone with a golden cap.
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
what you're seeing today, this is what I'm building to, is that the pyramids and Egypt that you see today is not what it was like in its glory.
100%.
It's literally like looking at a graveyard.
Yeah.
It's ruins, and the original way, like you said, with the way the pyramids were originally, is not how they are today.
So I
It
look at it
had,
a bit like Total Recall. If we put an ark back in the King's Chamber and we had the water hydraulics working again, we would be able to fertilize all of that land surrounding the pyramid. So we'd have vegetation because it survived two cycles, two
yeah,
24,000
I
year
mean,
cycles.
they've written thousands of books
Yeah.
trying to figure out, work out, decipher the pyramids and what they were for.
It's
And
multifunctional, to be fair.
multifunctional. And so, like I was saying, being the ruins, it was designed that at some point, some stage in the future, because our elders knew this, they planned this. So even things like the Rosetta Stone that they found, these were all little clues that were
So
left.
it's our job to reactivate it,
Right.
to
Even like
fertilize the land, like the whole legend of the Grail.
when they dig up our ancestors, which is a very, you know, dishonorary thing to do, to dig up people's bodies and just to study them and take DNA and all of that. But even then, our ancestors knew, because the mummification was the preservation of the DNA. Because as I said, they knew that when we evolved to a stage, because tying into this Natharu, who are extraterrestrials, they are advanced, but they're not allowed to interfere with our natural evolution. So what they only did is kind of send people to guide us when we were straying too far away, or we are at risk of damaging the entire planet. And that would be a chain reaction, because there are many extraterrestrials, many beings that share the planet with us, both humanoid and not humanoid. And also you have the fact that our solar system in the 18th galaxy is right next to the 19th galaxy, which is
Clypeus.
where Yanun is from, and those beings. So if there's a, a catastrophe on this planet, it's just going to cause a chain reaction to the other galaxies and to other beings. And so whenever, by that I mean things like nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
using atomic weapons and things like that, like they did in
Well, saying
Nagasaki.
that, can we go into the latest update from the master teacher where we say we're no longer protected by the Galactic Federation?
Okay,
Because
let me come to that, because you asked about the pyramids, so we want to try and cover the pyramids before we, digress a bit. So, yeah, so the secrets were kept sacred and handed over generation to generation, knowing that when this time comes, they would decipher the genome to find out about the 24,000 genomes, or genes that make up the different strands of the root races. Of course, there are mixtures now, so you have hybrids of the different combinations of people. But the pyramid themselves were used for, as you said, for charging up
craft.
extraterrestrials' crafts. Because when you study the pyramid, you see that they give off a vibration or frequency from the top known as standard columnar waves, which gives you the double helix. Okay. And as you know, the double helix ties into the DNA, the human DNA. So And the DNA is programmable because you have what we call genetic markers, the ACGT, which can be rearranged in different ways to, get particular outcomes. And so today now, the people are figuring out, okay, so the pyramids were not just used for studying and teaching, initiations and stuff like that. They were actually designed to help humanity progress to the next level, because we built pyramids as well on our land in Egypt of the West, Tamaray, and most people on the planet for the last 6,000 years, by way of religions and lower vibrations and six ether forces, their aura has been very negative. The way they think is negative because the influences by way of the deities they worship in these religions, in the Bible, the Quran, and so forth, they basically dumbed you down. So you you behave more like an animal because you're killing, doing all of these things that the God of the Bibles were doing. So it's a very barbaric way. So these six ether forces were ruling, and when we built the pyramids on Tamaray, the master explained to us, the master being the only one, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, Partner Babyanun, that by performing that ceremony called the Mugaraj, what it was doing was transforming you from a negative aura being to a positive negative, with the view to becoming positive. So when you did that Mugaraj and you were aligned and you were in tune with your ancestors, they were able to transform you because most of the people who even got to that point of going to Tamaray to do the Mugaraj were people that were being raised in consciousness since the master teacher started teaching and breaking down Wu-Sabat. And that's what's been spreading throughout the world to bring the planet into alignment, to bring the planet back into harmony, because the more negativity that's on the planet, it affects the entropy effect, which means that it's the vibration of the planet, it's not stable. So by making it more peaceful, more harmful, by converting the beings on the planet to being more peaceful, more in harmony, etc., you actually affect the whole planet. And that resonant frequency is one called ashok, or love, which comes from the heart seat, because it has to be based on love, true love, not this fake love, lust, and the love that is promoted, which deals with the lower chakras, the desire, and the red energy, which is dealing with the red me stone and all that kind of thing. So to round off, the pyramids were used for many, many reasons. As I said, to charge up crafts. They were actually connected, as you say, on the ley lines and the energy grid of the planet. They were used for schools. This whole thing about as above, so below, this is what they're now starting to delve into, because the pyramid themselves, if you look at it, it's a diamond. Yeah. Not so much a square, because when you look at a square is a cross. So if you look at a cross,
the only way it can become that is if you look it from above.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of symbology around the pyramids, but there's also a lot of actual facts and scientific things that they're going to start to find. As you said, the water,
I mean, to this day, the Knights Templars still have Jedi initiation in the King's Chamber. So we will perform like the open of the mouth ceremony.
Right.
So our spirit will leave our body straight to Orion, and
this is what I was going into, because when you look at the cross as a cube, that's dealing with that whole ability to steal your soul and stop it from going where it's supposed to go. So, like you said, the opening of the mouth ceremony was a ritual that was performed where, the pharaohs, they knew how to channel and transfer that energy directly back to home, which where they came from, which would be Orion, Sirius C, and so on. So, but then you have other interdimensional beings that don't have soul and they want to steal your soul. So everything on the planet right now, you have a lot of religions are all they're based around stealing your soul, promising you heaven and things like that. But then no one really proves where or what heaven is or where hell is. They use hell as a fear tactic to get you to surrender and give your divinity and your energy to feed in these six ether forces who feed these beings, the archons and the draconians and these beings that they want to steal your soul, you see. And we are the people with the soul on the planet. Hence we were known as what? Soul people, soul music, soul food. And it goes on and on because we have that direct connection back to the higher etheric realms, the 9 levels of them. You see, everyone has 4 beings, like your physical body, your spiritual, your soul, and your mental. Those are the 4 lower ones. You have to master those to progress to the next. So when you look at the 4th, that's where we're dealing with, like, when you're saying mental, you're dealing with everything you do is based on your mentality. It's based on your intelligence. So by dumbing your intelligence down to the point where you're not really operating as a supreme or a divine being, you're being manipulated and controlled. And then there are lots of what you call distractions, distortions. And they tell you in the Bible, in the Quran, the religious books, that what the devil does is he uses evil, but he makes it fair seeming. So you may think you're doing the right thing, but actually you've been bamboozled to doing the wrong thing. So no matter how sincere you are, you want to know the truth, you want to connect with what you're calling a supreme being or higher being. The first thing they do is divert it away from yourself, so you don't think you are that being. So you start to give that energy to external forces and external beings, and that's how they get you, by basically distorting everything. So our ancestors have actually set it up for them to recover. They say they discovered things, but it's been set up for them to find, so that the world will know. And obviously we're moving into that era of, in order for the human species to evolve to the intergalactic level and start to interact with these beings that have left all of these old technologies and ruins, which people are finding and thinking, wow, but they're so obsolete because they're so far ahead in terms of technological advancement. So that's what we are here. And the extraterrestrial that came to kick all this off and break the 7th seal and start to teach us who we are, what we are, and where we're going, and what our purpose is on the planet, is Partner Babyanun. And he's been doing his job ever since 1962, officially from 1970. And now we're getting to the point where more and more people are waking up. And it's our job, with each one teach one, to spread Wu-Sabat and let everyone know the truth. So that's the pyramids in a nutshell. There's so much more, but we're gonna get more. There will be much more.
Even the way we carved our hieroglyphics, Medunetta, we'd use a compound of beeswax and acid from the acacia tree to soften the stone. A lot of people don't know that because, like you said, we pass it down, secrete, and
I mean, that's what building is about. And those master builders, they were assisted by our ancestors who had technology and information, things like levitation. Because people say, how did they carry and lift the pyramid?
Mana, subatomic gold and platinum. So we could break down compounds,
alchemy,
burn it.
That's what
we would make a concoction what they would call in the biblical text as bread. It would actually be subatomic gold, metal.
Right.
Now we could actually make that into a paste as well, like a lacquer, paint it on a stone, and it would basically take the weight away from it. So when we filled the arcs up with mana, people would carry, because these arcs, some of them would be about 2 to 4 tons. But when you've got a compound in it which takes the weight away, you can move things flawlessly.
I mean,
and the same substance is used within craft that we make as well.
That's what I'm saying, that we worked in conjunction, even Coral Castle. And when you look at, like you were saying, Nikola Tesla and certain people that were way advanced in their technology in terms of communication, in terms of what they're discovering now, known as 3D printing. So 3D printing, things like levitation, knowing how to use the energy grid. These were all sciences and technologies that our ancestors shared with us and taught those beings that were helping and assisting to build. So certain things, even now people are talking about those giants, those giants that were around. And when people talk about giants, you know, they don't only refer to like the Nephilims and beings that were like between 7 and 9 feet tall. You got other beings that were even taller than that,
I
like
mean,
13.
how big was Anu?
Well, that
You know what I mean?
again, the thing with Anu is a very interesting subject because it's a title that different beings held at different times. You see, so Anu that most people are familiar with is the ninth Anu.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
the father of really learning King.
exactly. So there were different Anus, and we have a master secret called the Anunnaki and the biblical stories or something like that. I don't have the exact title in my head right now, but we have scrolls. Like I said at the beginning, there isn't one question that people have asked that the master hasn't written a book on. So literally everything you can think of that you ask, he writes a book on it. If you you ask a question that he hasn't written a book on it yet, that's what we would like, because then he will write a book on it to give and share the information. So there is no one alive or that has crossed over till this day and time that has done greater works than the master teacher. And we challenge anyone to kind of like tell us if there is, show me who it is. And we don't say that to just to like brag or boast or be egotistical. We're like, when you're dealing with an extraterrestrial being of the level of intelligence, then really the whole world should have a platform to hear and speak.
Plus is the ascended master of ascended masters.
That's right.
You're dealing with Tahuti.
There you go. And everyone
So
went to sit
yeah,
at his feet to learn and be
even the
taught.
one people call Yahshua studied from the being called
That's right.
Tahuti.
That's right.
Every single prophet you can trace back to Egypt studying under Tahuti.
Yeah,
So Tahuti is blessed to be with us now in the form of Pana Babylon.
absolutely.
And this is what people need to realize.
And then when I'm saying
Flawless.
the
It's flawless.
distortions, this is what what they did by changing the names, and not realizing that, okay, they will say the Egyptians were pagans in the Bible, right? But then every time there was a problem, like you said, the place to go to be saved or safe was Egypt. Like, when Herod was trying to unalive all the young children, the young born sons, they were told, Mary and Joseph were told to take Jesus to go and hide in Egypt. Moses was found in Egypt in a basket. Abraham went to Egypt. Like you said, Jesus was in Egypt until he came back at the age of 13. And so whenever there was a famine, whenever there was any type of problem, everyone will run to Egypt.
Well, Yahshua himself, along with John the Baptist, was initiated in the Great Pyramid under the learning school of Tahuti.
Right. And in the Bible, they tell you that because they tell you that,
Call my son out of Egypt.
yeah, call my son out of Egypt. Even Revelation 3:14 talks about, among, or
Witnessing
we
the
witness the
creation.
creation of God. And then when you're going into Egypt, it's like, you have to ask, well, if they were pagans, how did they have all that information? How did they know all of these things that no one else was able to do? Even when they talk about the snake trick with changing.
Well, that would have been electrical current. So she was to bend the copper wire, what they would call the Baghdad battery, but it's not the Baghdad, it came from Egypt first.
Yeah, even the light bulb.
Yeah, through Tahuti again.
Yeah, and
Teaching
Jesus was made after the order of what?
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek. And
Tahuti.
Melchizedek is Tahuti, Malachi Zadok, or
Yeah.
and he was known as what? The king of Salem, whereas Jesus was known as the prince. What is greater, a king or a prince? You see, so, and both Jesus, as you said, and John the Baptist were part of an order called the Essene order. And the Essene order was, again, what you kind of call the Sufi aspect or the spiritual aspect of Christianity. And in every religion, you will always have that, like even in Islam, you have Sufism, which is the spiritual part. So there's always the lesser mysteries and then the greater mysteries where the real information, the real secrets are secreted. And so, you have to be worthy. You can't just give, as they said, pearls to swine, or, give a baby a loaded gun, because
Yeah.
they're not responsible.
I mean, this is exactly what happened regarding back to the pyramids.
Mm,
We knew how to harness electricity for free.
exactly. Yeah.
So our secrets got out. People basically abused it, and now they're charging the world for electricity.
But even when you look at electricity is actually the lowest
Yeah,
form
it's
of
lowest
energy
density.
in terms of, it's quite primitive when
Yeah,
you're looking at, say, the electromagnetic spectrum, you see, because you're going from gamma rays all the way down,
yeah. So
ultraviolet
it's like the
rays,
sixth
etc.
ether of that world.
Then you
Yeah,
come to
yeah,
the lowest, which is electricity, which is, it's quite primitive, because think about it. We have to charge our mobile or cell phones every day. Why can't you just have a device that just works without needing to constantly
mm,
plug it in and charge it up? So you're right when you start to look at the whole thing with Nikola Tesla wanting to make it free energy, but the greed and the capitalist mindset is about, you know, selfishness. It's about me, myself, and I. As long as I have, it doesn't matter about everybody else. So it's all about competition. It's all about, yeah, let me go around and take the resources for me and my people only, as opposed to making it free for everyone.
I
And
mean,
we have to get to that point where, like things like electricity, things that people are charged for, like water,
yeah.
these are the things that, with unification of mind, without things like racism and suppressing people who know and have the information, like I say all the time, racism has hindered the development of us as humanity, because we as a people have been disenfranchised, and so we're not allowed in because of the European and his ego, you see. So where we would, invent and develop, and we're doing that now. A lot of inventions that people don't know, the patents and the patents are actually, owned by a lot of Negroids in the past. So what I'm basically saying is that it's either we allow a flat playing ground, so that these inventions can start to come through, because you cannot limit our minds.
Yeah.
You see, so either people accept it or not, they have to realize that we have the information and the knowledge that's going to help us
I
progress
mean,
as
the
a
way the
people.
ascended masters are going to look at it is if you can't even get along with the races on Earth, how are you going to get along with people from different galaxies?
Exactly, because intelligent beings look at us like
Primitive.
very, very primitive, and it's like, yeah, just forget those old ways. They're not working. They haven't worked, and now we have to go back to our original culture, which is Wu-Sabat. Study our own tones, vibrations, and frequencies, which is our language. Come together in terms of being a more intelligent being, unifying, and, like I'm saying, solving the problems of the world. Because imagine you take away all the competition with, like, money and I have more than you. Imagine everyone has food, everyone has accommodation, drinking water,
Yeah.
energy. Then we will actually focus our minds on doing things that will help humanity and solving the
Totally agree.
problems.
Yeah.
You see, so this is where we're moving to, and any intelligent being has to evolve, or you're going to die with the old ways, because many of the old ways, the sixth ether, it's now dissipating, and at the end of the day, you have to evolve into this new consciousness, this new shift, this dimensional shift, or you're going to just get left behind. And everybody has the opportunity and a choice by way of Wu-Sabat to get back in order. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it okay if we go back onto the latest update from our master teacher?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Right.
So, CERN,
There's
yeah,
even more later
yeah, yeah,
updates than that
yeah.
one now, but yeah, go ahead.
Start with the CERN one.
Yeah.
Um, because we're not protected by the Galactical Federation, that would lead us under direct attack by anybody that's got a problem or want to use us for food.
Yeah.
How can we gain back the protection of the Galactical Federation?
You gotta realize when you say Galactical Federation that there are different beings with, like, let's say a hierarchy,
Yeah.
even though they work together. It's like looking at the
NATO.
United Nations or NATO, yeah. But we say NATO, but NATO is really
One-sided.
the army side
Yeah.
of United Nations. But when you study NATO, you will find that, or study the United Nations, you find that over the years it has diminished in terms of its power, because if one nation is dominating in terms of its financing it,
Yeah.
then it's going to have more say and more control. And if, say, the army is controlled or predominantly, financed or sponsored by one nation, then they're going to dictate or pull strings on what the army does. And a lot of people are starting to want to pull out of that now, because they see, like, America was dominating it for a long time, which means that it wasn't really as fair as it's supposed to be. So in terms of, even though you'll have a council, there are certain people who still have more power. So when you look at, as you're saying, the Galactic Federation, all it means is, like, you have different beings from different galaxies that are represented in that federation, and each representative is gonna fight for what they want, what's gonna be in their best interest, for lack of a better word. But the highest beings are the Natharu, and the children of the Natharu are protected because these beings, like the Archons, the Draconians, or the Pleiadians from Octorus, they're warned and told, like, leave our children alone. Of course, if you don't behave and act like a child of the Natharu, then you're allowing yourself to be in a position where, because that's what the extraterrestrials turned around and said. They literally said, well, what about the ones that are not following you, the ones that have put themselves on the menu? And they're like, well, you can have them. So everyone that is, a child of the Natharu, if they're listening to the warner guide in this day and time, what he's teaching you, and not only just listening to it, but putting it into practice, actually living it, then you will be protected.
For those who don't know, can we go into at least some of these extraterrestrial races, for instance, that would want to use us as food? I mean, you've got the predator beings from Andromeda and the Andromeda star system.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that the guy who made the Predator movie was in contact with them, or at least knew something that others didn't know.
What you have to remember is, when people say they're inspired,
Yeah.
this is telepathic communication,
Yeah.
where beings can actually put images in your mind, and you say, oh, I've got inspiration, because you start to write it down. But yeah, you're right. There's no story that you can think of that doesn't have an element of truth to it. And when you look at the chain of life, we were a part of the animal kingdom. And in that animal kingdom, it's just like the cycle of life is, you're born, you live, you're maybe eaten, you go back into the cycle. But we were fortunate to be taken away from that, because we had the DNA or the genes of the extraterrestrial, the Paranatharu in our case, which meant that we got intelligence to know and move away from that. And we're no longer like in the jungle where a tiger can look at you and eat you, you see. So these extraterrestrials, they view us, or some beings on this planet, as food, just like some humans till today still view cows, chickens, whatever they eat as animals. They view them, in the extraterrestrials view us in the same way that those humans view the chickens, because we just look at them like they're for food.
So this is basically what turned the Palladians into the space Nazis.
Yes.
Because they was getting eaten by the Draconians, they wanted to breed a race and take them instead.
Yeah, as a substitute to say to them, look, please stop eating us. We'll give you something else to feed on. And the deal was struck. But remember that these draconians are quite disagreeable, or the disagreeable ones of them, they're causing havoc along the way from wherever they travel in the galaxies to come here and so on. So our partner Tharu wanted to get rid of them as well. So there was a plan, like it says, you know, they tell you in the Bible things like God or Allah knows what you don't know. So this Natharu, they had a plan, which was, okay, give them a food
Poison them,
source,
poison
but
them.
when they eat them, they will also get wiped out.
Yeah.
You see, so, and it was planned to give them only a lifespan of 6,000 years by making sure that their telomeres at the end of their chromosomes were programmed to start to fade away after 6,000 years. And that was the end of that was in the year 2000 AD.
And not only that, their actual blood type as well, because it's not
That's right.
positive.
That's right.
Yeah.
So again, you have to remember that those original Pataites that were on this planet, they were in a place that was peaceful. There wasn't any of this carnivorous
So that would
behavior.
be the Nupu and Zupu
That's
zone.
right,
Yeah.
right. So so you had Nupu was, you see the word Nupu, Nuwapian, Nubian, all ties into that because that was the green zone where it was vegetation they lived on and they were peaceful and didn't really know about wickedness and evil and murder and killings and all that kind of thing. So when these other beings came here, because they had to be quarantined, they created the red zone known as Zupu. And that red zone is, where all things like the red me stone and the Kama Sutra and things that came away from that, which is dealing with
Lower chakras.
lower chakras, lust and, desires and things like that. And then bloodshed. See, the red, everything's red. Bloodshed, red me stone. It's all to do with their nature. So they were quarantined into the zone called Zupu. But in time, they basically broke the immigration laws and came in, raped and took,
They gotta
food.
go
They
back.
were even
They
eating those
gotta go
little
back.
people.
We gotta build a wall again. We
Yeah.
gotta build a big wall.
Well,
They gotta go.
it's happening now.
They gotta go.
They're getting wiped off the planet. And that's
you
the
know,
Adamites.
even
Yeah.
Trump said if he sees any craft, shoot it down. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
but
is he trying to?
that
It's not.
sounds
It's not
like
only a world war he's trying to create. It's an intergalactic war. You know what I'm saying?
that's futile because
Yeah.
you're talking about beings that they're too intelligent. Like
Yeah.
this is what it's like. That's Hollywood. It's like when you watch a movie and you got extraterrestrial coming, and then you see these American actors take out a little pistol and they're shooting at the.
These men have
It's
got
like,
lasers and
yeah,
it's
it's
real.
like it's entertainment.
Yeah.
To give you a laugh and pacify you to thinking, oh, we can handle any problem because they will bring someone like Will Smith, who's an who's a known comedian entertainer, and he's punching an alien and dragging it across the desert, in what's that? What's
Independence Day.
Independence Day? Yeah, and America's the hero, always wins,
Always, yeah.
beats everybody. So, if you believe the hype, then you might think, yeah, like that. What Donald Trump's saying now is going to make America great again. And you see what's going on every day. It's like the economy is going down. Everything is just going, in a particular direction. And there's the risk of war because there's now economic war, because all the tariffs and, China and Russia, and there's a lot of tensions. And so, we have to look at what's going on very seriously because there are many, many serious things, as you're saying, going back to the update where you have a meteorite or meteor that's heading towards the planet, Apophis. And, they've actually been monitoring this and know that, as usual, they will pacify things and say, it's not going to hit. But look out between 2027, 2030, 31, 32, there is a very likely chance of it hitting, and these are the types of things that humanity should be focusing and worrying about because
These events,
that will affect everybody.
These events, it's like clockwork. It happens every 24 to 25,000 years, over and over again.
Yeah.
So the same way a clock will work here, a clock will work the same in space. So in masonry and in most secret societies, they are prepared and trained to, if there's a massive world collapse, to be the bringers of new civilization again, to rebuild civilization again. We can never put a specific time on nature. Nature works the way it wants to work. That's why it's called natural in its nature. But people do know there's going to be a massive catastrophe within the world. And it's our job to basically get everybody to their highest level of consciousness. So if we do get taken away from this planet, we can interact with other beings and not be savage. But people are not doing a great job as it is dealing with their own species. So that's what we really need to create unity for all and make this world a better place before something does happen.
I mean, unfortunately, it seems like it needs a major incident for people to realize, because when you watch even things like we were talking about, like Independence Day, or the what's that one that you had Bruce Willis in as well, Armageddon and things like that. It's like, does it have to take a major incident to wake people up? Because when things like that, or even just like the tsunamis or the fires that were going on in LA not too long ago, or even COVID, it seems like it takes something of that major significance to have an impact to the point where people realize they need each other and everyone has to work together. We shouldn't have to do that. This is why we have been teaching peace and teaching that no one wins the race in racism, and teaching truth, teaching coming together. Doesn't matter about your color in terms of your skin suit. It's about, does it make sense? Is it right? Is it right knowledge? Is it, is there wisdom in what you're doing? Does it make sense, or is it something that is going to cause more problems? So we know that as Sabians, Nuwapians of Wu-Sabat, our mission has always been to spread truth. The master came teaching the truth and has never stopped teaching the truth. You may have, through things like racism, have issues with him because he's correcting you, because some children don't like to be corrected when they're wrong. You may have an issue with your ego and being corrected, so you attack him personally as opposed to the information. No one can dispute or deal with the information, because the information is right and exact, and it's something that you can't dispute. That's why we say truth is truth. Whether you accept it or not, it's still going to be the truth. So all he's done is teach truth, and for that, he's been incarcerated for, and our duty is to really
Come
together. That's what he's always said, love and unity. That's what's going to free him, and that's what we focus on, by spreading the right knowledge, the right wisdom, and the right understanding, that if you have a heart, if you have any type of empathy, any love, divine love, unconditional love within you, then you will definitely feel it and see the injustice, and you should be really trying to get involved to help, because us freeing him is going to free humanity. It's going to free us from repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah
100%. To the ascended masters as well.
Yeah.
Can we speak on those?
Yeah. I mean, I'm here for any questions you may have. So, yeah, what would you like to?
So these would be the 23 scientists that Elijah Muhammad first spoke of.
Right. So the people refer to them as the 24 elders, and they are all beings that you can think of in different scenarios, whether you're talking it from a religious point of view, like in the Bible, they talk about these 24 beings that surround the throne of, where they say God and Allah and so forth. But really, it's beings that are being raised to a certain level. And all the people you mentioned, like, the prophets, they were initiated into these orders. And
Order of Sadok.
yes, of Zodok, the Zodok, which is really justice, when you say Melchizedek or Malachi or Michael being the highest of the angels
who fought against the dragon.
who fought against the
So
dragon.
this is why I've got the tattoo saying Dragon Slayer.
Yeah. Okay.
Excalibur, the liquid sword.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're saying dragon, Draco dealing with these draconians. So yeah, the 24 elders are the ones that they are like, in terms of elevation or intelligence, they're the higher beings, and they make movies like Guardians of the Galaxies and things like that, which is dealing with these beings that are responsible for keeping order throughout the boundless universe. It's not just this one tiny little planet. But as you know, when you're dealing with quantum physics, that something could be this tiny and has a major, major, power and effect and impact on everything else. So they are very aware of, and they show you this in a lot of these like superhero movies, like the Avengers, and they show you all these super heroes, but they're really beings that have certain abilities or power.
Because what a lot of people fail to realize as well is that an ascending master could actually use your body as an avatar.
That's right. Yeah, because when you're dealing with, as I said before, you're a being that's multidimensional. So you exist on different planes or realms at the same time, and they're all connected. So you're a mental being, but you're also a physical being. You're a spiritual being, and your soul being, and then you go up to the higher realms
So
of
my
ether.
my oversoul would be labeled as Sananda.
I mean, that would be if you say so. But that's what the whole thing about him teaching us is, in terms of you can have access to these beings, to these masters who may be your ancestors. And so you can tap into them,
So what
but
would
you
it
have
be
to
then?
start from the ones you know and you're connected to most. So that would be your parents, your grandparents and their grandparents, going all the way to these, as you say, masters. But we have one with us, Master Yanun,
The master of all
the
masters.
master of all masters. And so once you're tuned in and connected to him, this is what Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and everybody was going to learn from.
Who's their sensei?
Yeah, Tahuti, as you say. So yeah, that's why he's here. He's here to bring about this new 24,000 year new sun cycle where everything has to change. Once the 60th forces are removed from the planet because they've caused enough havoc,
I feel
chaos.
excited, to be fair, because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it because I know the change is gonna come.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's a very famous song as well, isn't it? I think it's Sam Cooke.
yeah.
Change is gonna come. And they say the great and dreadful day of the Lord, you see, because people who resist change, even though change is something that is constant, whether you like it or not, change will happen. And some would say that it's great for them and it's dreadful for others. And that's where this whole fear of heaven and hell comes in. Because if you haven't been living right and that moment comes when you got to go, you start being afraid because you're thinking, I'm going to go to that other place. I'm going to go to hell and I'm going to burn in a fire forever and ever, you see? So, or if you have an exam coming up and you haven't studied, the day before the exam, you start panicking, you start worrying because you know you haven't prepared.
Can we touch on the heaven and hell thing where you've got Dante's Inferno, you've got what was it, Hades, which was actually underground.
Yeah.
And you've got like Ilion, which will be heaven, star systems. When a lot of people vision heaven and hell, they're visioning a guy with a pitchfork, dressed in red, in a real hot place.
Yes.
When they're visioning heaven, they're visioning white angels, wings, long blonde hair,
Yeah.
and choir music, nothing else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can we touch on what heaven and hell
Sure.
is?
I mean, everything plays that into this whole racism thing because, like, you're made to feel that the devil is black, bad, and he resides in hell.
Like Debo.
Yeah, and the reason I said that is because you're dealing with what we will call duality or opposites, right? So if the angels are wearing white and hell is clean and white and all of that stuff, then the opposite to that is going to be black, you see? And this whole racism is really serious because, like you say, like you forget that the duality is in everyone and everything in this three-dimensional world. So each person can be good or bad. And this whole black and white, it's just a misnomer. It's a concoction. It's something, it's like a social construct, right? So people have to remember that they can give themselves hell just by the things they do and what they think. That's one level of hell. Your desires can give you hell because if you're constantly like greedy, nothing is enough. You want more and more and more and more and more. Constantly desiring things, whether it's lust. And lust is not only a sexual nature, it's just like it could be anything. It could be clothes, it could be jewelry. So that desire, this is where the word desire kind of sounds like fire, because there's a burning, this constant burning to have more and get more, greed and being gluttonous, etc. So that's another level of hell where your desires. That's why even Buddha said, "What desire leads to suffering,
Suffering pain, yeah.
suffering and pain," and the Greek word "monē," which relates to money,
yeah.
yeah, because the phonetics, and you can see the words when you replace the A with the E, as in the vowels. Money is what drives a lot of people to the point where people will do anything for money, and that desire to have more, to have better things, and that Monet comes out to be the god of pain and sarcasm. And so, and it's funny because it's like the more you're thinking you're chasing it, it's just eluding you and laughing because it watches you suffer, and when you don't really need to. So there is the mental hell, as in what you think every day, what you put yourself through, the desires. There is the physical hell on the planet because certain parts of the world, or where people are living in what they will term ghettos, yeah, in Germany, grottos, or they were dealing with where the standard of living is just so bad that it's literally like a hell. You know, you're talking about areas that are infested with drug addicts, with homelessness,
Yeah.
with nowhere to live, just bad crime and everything. A lot of unaliving each other and things like that. Those are certain areas, and you go to other areas and they have all the stuff they tell you is in heaven: gardens, plush houses.
Picket fence.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. So even on the planet, you have certain parts where people live, where you would consider to be, go to, what they call Iraq or Chirac, dealing with, Chicago and certain places where it's rampant. And you can go to many cities and see this.
I
So
mean, a lot of it's social engineering as well. It's like
it
turn
is,
all the ethnic minorities against each other, so we can take their
yeah,
resources.
you put a place with people, put like drugs, alcohol, etc.,
I mean,
etc.
there's
It's
been
gonna,
legends around the hood that every hood has had a box of guns just left there.
right. So
You know what I'm
then
saying?
we go to the one you're talking about, where you're talking about this place called hell that is supposed to be down there. And we've already explained that people have traveled from the North Pole all the way through to the South Pole
Admiral
and
Bud.
haven't found this place called hell, apart from beings that live there that do the things that
Want to
you would
eat, yeah.
consider, you would consider to be hell. Like you're dealing with the lower vibration, lower frequencies, and those lower abodes have entities and beings that reside on those vibrations. Your ghouls, your demons, the list goes on. And So there's a place that was referred to in ancient times as Hades, as you said, where, you know, they're talking about, you know, Shambhala and places that are beneath the earth.
You got
Yeah.
Shalbala and Agartha.
Yeah. Then you go to what they call heaven, which comes from the word haven, which is really describing a docking station, like when you know, go to a space station and you dock, and that's, you know, like traveling to different galaxies and going to these different
Like a
constellations.
cargo hold.
Yeah, these constellations that beings live in. You got the ones that have peaceful abodes, and you got those ones that are disagreeable. So when you start to look at this whole concept of heaven and hell, it is multifaceted in the sense that you got the realms. So depending on whether you're raising your vibration, as you say, to become an ascending master, because you're ascending, not up but in vibration, or you're descending because you're going down and going down to the lower abodes. But you are in charge of what you do that raises your vibration or that lowers it. And that is on every level you can think
100%.
of, physically, spiritually, mentally, you know, and that comes down to your heart seat, you know, because it all comes from that heart and the blood that is pumped around your body to keep you alive,
Yeah.
the electricity that is sending messages to your neuron, your neuromelanin, which activates your pineal gland, which gives you this higher consciousness to connect with higher entities and higher beings.
Yeah.
So you really create heaven and or hell for yourself. Yeah. So we built heaven on earth from Tamaray, Egypt of the West. We are in heaven mentally because we teach the truth and we deal with, you know, using our minds to deal with humanity on a higher level, you see. And we want to build heaven on earth physically too. So we are, you know, we eat well, we deal with health. We don't have any problems with acquiring wealth, but we're not like the love of money, which will, that's what they say. The love of money is the root to
All evil.
all evil. Not having money, the love of it, where you love it so
But I'd
much that,
say not having it is
yeah,
more evil because you're gonna do barbaric things when you haven't got it.
yeah.
So it's all
Well, you don't
about,
have to.
like,
That's what I'm saying. You have a
yeah,
choice. You can
yeah.
do good things to
But
get
it's
it.
all about balance.
Yeah,
Because if you've got nothing to eat, as we said last time, 9 times out of 10, people who haven't got anything and they need to survive are gonna do what's considered bad
yeah.
in order to survive.
Well, this is where when you say the word devil, you have different types of devils. You have devils that are devils by nature. So they do it regardless of whether they're in a situation where, oh, I need to eat. They will do something devilishment.
But would the lion be considered a devil if he wants to eat
No,
somebody?
because
It's his
because a
nature. It's his
lion has
nature.
that nature,
Yeah.
and the environment that it lives in, that's accepted. But if you live in an environment where that's not accepted, then you're not supposed to be there. You see, but what I'm saying is that you have devils by conversion and you have devils by nature.
Yeah.
A devil by conversion is someone who, like you say, their back's against the wall. They need to eat, they need to survive, and the only means they may have, not saying they couldn't think of a way to get out of that without doing it, but let's say there's lots of food that is being wasted. Like, you know, a lot of restaurants will throw away food instead of giving it to the homeless that don't have any food to eat because of policies and things like that. So what I'm saying is there are people who by no choice have had to survive because the environment that they're in means that, like I said before, they don't have opportunities like everyone else. So they have to make
Yeah.
opportunities. But you've got devils by nature who, even once they are okay and they still feel the need to go and take more from other people or create, you know,
Chaos.
chaos. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, you know, we've done quite another long time.
Sensei, it's
It's
always
always a
always a shock.
pleasure for
Always a
you to
shock to
come
man.
through. And I
Always
know most people that relate to what you're saying will find this content useful. So yeah, once again, Ashok,
a shock.
thanks for coming in.
So man, always.
Always.